It's like I'm not up a 17-year-old. It only had 150 on it.
Okay, should we give Michael Santos just a couple minutes to join us?
Yes.
I don't know if we're allowed to speak with incoming chief until we officially begin our meeting.
Oh yeah,
you can if you want to. I speak actually.
We could just
have a voice.
Look at you until we start. But
I wore a fancy shirt for you tonight, so.
Oh.
I'm unemployed this week, so I figure I can dress like someone who's unemployed.
Yeah, that's smart.
It isn't blue though. I'm not seeing the KU quite yet.
No, but I've got plenty of KU stuff. Trust me. I'm gonna be a proud rock chalker. I haven't been able to do it for 20 years, so I'm gonna do it all the time.
Awesome.
You know
I don't
it's a
get to do that in
Jayhawk,
Missouri.
right?
Huh?
You know it's a Jayhawk, right? Not a rock chalker.
Yeah, no, I'll Jayhawk or rock chalk, whatever I'm supposed to do. I got to learn my way around.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
don't say that again. So
I've been in tiger country for way too long.
I'm just sorry, I have to help you out. You're a Jayhawker.
Okay, I'll be a Jayhawker.
They take this really serious in this
I
town.
know.
I'm telling you.
I gotta learn the ins and outs. So thanks for letting me know.
Has been updated.
Oh, gosh.
Did you add yourself to my call?
I did.
Still nothing
Well,
from Michael.
No. Should be.
Well,
Has anybody
I-
sent him a text or an email to prompt him?
yeah, I'm doing that right now.
Great.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah.
Any other KU related facts that our incoming chief needs to know, Marie?
Yes, please let me
I
know.
won't name names, but someone I do know who, when they were new, said the Jay Bird, and everyone mouth just dropped. What?
I've not said that.
I know, don't.
Oh, okay. No. Now people in Missouri say that. I've heard all kinds of disparaging things here, but
Jay Bird.
Are you in Missouri right now?
I'm in Warrensburg.
You're going to have to get over that.
I know. I moved furniture today. I was in Lawrence for a little bit, moving some furniture.
Well, that's a good start.
It is. I've got to spend what little time I have left with my family.
Okay. Well, I did message board member Santos, and so hopefully he'll get that message and log on. But I would suggest we do go ahead and get started.
All right, that sounds good. Welcome, everyone. Brandon, would you like to start us off by reading our remote meetings?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Thank you. Okay, so welcome to the January 13th, 2022 Community Police Review Board meeting, and welcome to the new year. I do want to provide a few reminders to ensure that provisions of the Kansas Open Meetings Act are met while following COVID-19 procedures. Board members and other participants must state their names and titles each time they speak. Various members of staff are present and also in attendance via Zoom, and we must also state our names and titles each time we speak. All motions need to be stated clearly, and after a motion is made and seconded, the chair will call on the board and members or the board members individually to provide their vote. The chair will then announce whether or not the motion carried, as well as a count of the vote. And the agenda for this meeting provided instructions for how to submit public comment and how it would be handled. I believe we do have public comment correspondence attached to the agenda tonight. And we do not presently have any members of the public in attendance in person this evening. And I do not see anybody yet who is logged on to the Zoom meeting, but I will let you know, Madam Chair, if that does happen, and encourage the board to receive public comment. Finally, I want to just remind everybody to mute yourselves when you're not speaking, please. Thank you.
All right, this is Chair Robinson. So before we start by approving our minutes, is this the time when we want to welcome our incoming chief, Chief Lockhart?
Well, incoming Chief Rich Lockhart. Thank you, Madam Chair, for that intro. I just wanted to come tonight just to say hello to everyone. Let you know that Brandon and I have been working behind the scenes he's bringing me up to speed on the Community Police Review Board and your work. I did read about a lot of your work, what was publicly available. as I was applying for the job, and I want to applaud you for everything you've done so far and all of the hard work you've put in, and assure you that we'll be working very closely together over the next few months to hopefully work through all the issues that you guys have identified, and see if we can't come to some resolution on some of those things. I also wanted to give you an opportunity if you have any questions you'd like to ask. I'm not going to stay for your whole meeting so that you guys can work through some things. And then I believe that my assistant has scheduled meetings, individual meetings with all of you in the upcoming weeks. I know I ran into Sharon, is that who it is? Or Miss Littleton at the police station today. Yeah. So I met one person, and unfortunately, I think she was making a police report, so probably not the best time for her to be at a police station. So, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take those now, and then I'll let you all get on with your meeting.
This is Board Member Jane Gibson. I just want to say welcome. I don't have any questions yet because I don't know enough about you yet to ask.
Okay.
I am setting up a meeting with you. I'm sure all of us are, and I look forward to that. I'm glad to have you with us. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to meeting you as well.
Yeah, this is Chair Robinson. Just thank you so much for coming tonight. And I'm really excited that you've decided to join our community here and that you're taking time to meet with each of us individually. That's says a lot. So thank you very much. And we're excited to have you.
Thank you.
This is Board Member Salvini. I want to thank you for being here as well. Thank you for taking the time to read certainly some of the public literature that's out there, some of the public documents that are out there, not only for us, but I'm sure for other groups as well, to become acclimated with the city and with the more context of your role within the city as well. So really appreciate that. And it was a pleasure to serve on the committee, the hiring committee for that. So I also want to acknowledge that that was a nice process, a wonderful process, and congratulations.
Just incoming Chief Lockhart, thank you for that. And I do want to say thank you to all of you who did participate. I think Chair Robinson also participated in the interview process. It's very important that a community be engaged with their police department. It creates value that cannot be measured. And the fact that all of you took time out of your busy schedules to participate in that process is something that was really appealing to me as I was deciding whether or not I wanted to take the job. And so one of the things that I do enjoy is a very active and involved community. And I think it's important for all of us to work together to create our idea of what policing in Lawrence should look like. I think far too often in policing, we try and tell the community what we're going to do. We tell them what policing is going to look like, and then it doesn't end up fitting very well. So I bring a lot of experience. I was in Kansas City for 25 years before I came here. Worked with an Office of Community Complaints there that was not quite what your board is set up to do, but they were analysts who analyzed internal affairs investigations and made a determination on complaints about whether they were sustained, not sustained, unsubstantiated, or unfounded. And then in Warrensburg, we worked with a lot of community engagement. We didn't have any oversight here, but there wasn't really a call for that. So a little bit different policing community here. So really looking forward to getting to know you all and working through how do we look at policing in Lawrence so that everyone feels like it fits them.
This is Chair Robinson. Any other questions from the board tonight?
This is Board Member Stephanie Littleton. Rich, that sounds perfect. Like it, looking forward to it. I did a little bit of homework looking back at Kansas City, Missouri. Is KCMO, right?
KCMO, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I did review, and they have something kind of like, you know, what you were explaining, like kind of an auditor type model, if you will. But so quite different from what we're looking and kind of asking for here, which wouldn't fit, I don't believe. That, you know, that's my perception. But anyway, for here, but anyway, we look forward to definitely bridging some gaps here and working together. So thank you.
Incoming Chief Rich Lockhart again, and I apologize for getting your name wrong, Stephanie. Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have looked at any of the work of Samuel Walker. He's one of the foremost experts in community oversight of police departments. He's in Omaha. He and I worked together to develop an early warning system in Kansas City. That's not quite what we're doing here, but he's a great researcher, studied the issue quite a bit. And if you haven't looked at any of his stuff, I would encourage you to do that as we work through this process, because he has a lot of good stuff with a lot of different models. And he's considered one of the top experts in the country.
Could you say that name again, please?
Samuel Walker.
Thank you.
Right. This is Chair Robinson. Well, thank you so much for joining us, incoming Chief Lockhart. And I know we all look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you, guys. I'll see you.
All right, thank you.
All right, so first item on our agenda tonight is to approve the November 11th, 2021 meeting minutes. Do we have any discussion? Would anyone like to make a motion?
This is a board member, Stephanie Littleton. I was absent, so I will abstain.
Okay.
Same here, Jane Gibson, board member absent, so I'm going to abstain. So it looks like you three will have to make the motion and second and vote.
Okay.
This is board member Salvini. I too will need to abstain.
Okay. Are we able to vote with just the two of us? Is that okay? Okay. I'd like to motion that we approve the minutes for November 11th, 2021. Do we have a second?
Board member Marie Taylor, second.
All right, let's vote. Chair Robinson, yay. Board member Taylor.
Board member Marie Taylor, A.
All right.
Is that a yay or a nay, Marie?
I don't know. Board member Marie Taylor, I said A.
We're going to need a little clarification on that vote.
Yeah. That's like, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
All right. That motion passes. We've approved our November 11th, 2021 minutes. All right, so next we can move on to public comment. Do we have anyone present to make public comment now, Brandon? Anyone waiting?
No, not at the present time.
Okay. And then as far as the written public comment that we received from a community member, Steve Watts, do we just acknowledge the receipt of that and that we've read that?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge that we received and read. Board member Gibson.
This is board member Jane Gibson. I wanted to thank Mr. Watts for that article. It's interesting, and I appreciated its emphasis on principles, which seems to be something for us to think about when it comes to use of force issues. So thank you to Mr. Watts.
This is Chair Robinson. I agree. Thank you. All right. So we'll go ahead and move on, and we will have space for public comment at each agenda item if there is anyone wishing to make public comment on each item. So next up on the agenda is to receive an update from myself in regards to progress on meeting with the LPOA representatives. So I just wanted to update our board about our efforts to connect with the Lawrence Police Officers Association's representatives. Sanjay and I have been messaging back and forth with Officer Kevin Henderson, who's the chair of the LPOA, and Officer Tyler Trowbridge, who's the vice chairman of the LPOA, for a couple months now. It's obviously been complicated by the holidays and COVID, and we're hoping to connect with them very soon. And when we do, we'll bring a report back to the board. I thought that was important to just report that back to the board since it's been a couple of months, just so you know and our community members know we're trying to connect. Any questions, discussion about that? Board Member Gibson.
Jane Gibson, board member. I have a question. Is that to be a meeting only between Jenny, Sanjay, and the LPOA representatives, or are other people invited to participate in that meeting? I guess we could only have 3, otherwise we're in violation of COMA, but so could you have one more?
Yeah, this is Chair Robinson. I was envisioning just having an informal meet and greet similar to what I did when I met with Major McKinley and Lieutenant Ernst at the police department. I think this was probably a few months back. So absolutely, if another person is interested, we just really wanted to make that connection and establish that. And it's always nice to be able to meet with someone individually. And but absolutely, if anyone else is interested, we can do that.
I would be, if it's a Zoom meeting.
Would anyone else be interested? And I know either Sanjay or I could sit out.
This board member, Steph Middleton, I would as well.
Okay.
Thanks.
This is Chair Robinson. All right, so either Sanjay or myself will be in on that meeting, and Jane and Stephanie. So hopefully in the next month, we can get that scheduled. Okay, any other discussion about that? All right, we don't need a motion to move on. So next up on our agenda is discussion of next steps and outcome following the City Commission meeting. So before we begin discussion, I'd like to make a short statement. Over the last year and a half, the board has undertaken a huge amount of research, public engagement, and collaboration in order to draft an ordinance that allows us to serve all of our community members, especially centering those living with historically oppressed identities. We've been asked to stop the process of proceeding with this new draft ordinance and instead focus on the larger picture in this working group as identified by Citygate and directed by the City Commission. The shift in focus is frustrating and disorienting, to say the least. However, we've all volunteered to serve on this board because we want to serve our community. We have an ordinance that we're able to work from and bring attention to what our community needs. We have the opportunity to work with the city in this work group to identify and work towards systemic changes. But I just want to take this moment to personally thank each of you for the dedication that you've brought to this work over the last year and a half. That was not wasted time at all. I think that's important to say. And the knowledge that we gained through that process will be incredibly useful going forward. So I just wanted to take this time to thank you. So thank you. We can go ahead and begin discussion from there. Board Member Gibson.
Board Member Jane Gibson. I would just say that despite what I saw as Jenny's clear question about what the City Commission wanted, that we did not get a clear answer with regard to the ordinance. And Jenny, you've said that they've asked us to stop, and I don't know that that's the case. I think, and this is an issue because I think all of us who watched that meeting may come away with a very different interpretation of what we saw there. But what I came away with was that they want us to, they don't want to trash all the work that we've done. They would like us to preserve that work, but also that they would like for the working group to inform that work. So to me, that's not stop. That means really following what the Citygate's recommendation was, which was to have this working group of key stakeholders, and I'm quoting here, who will have an interest in the outcomes of any new Community Police Review Board ordinance. So to me, that suggests that we're not done with of course, we all had already agreed we're not done with the ordinance. We wanted to do small focus groups to talk about the ordinance with people in a context in which they could feel comfortable being frank with us and feel confident that their confidentiality would be respected as well. So I see the working group as a step in that direction. I don't think that that we should, I mean, I don't see our restricting the agenda for that group. Actually, I think the group needs to decide what its agenda is going to be. But I see that the ordinance could be and should be a piece of that, especially because the city commission wants that group, as we our discussions, to inform any additional changes we want to make to that draft ordinance.
This is Board Member Salvini. I echo what you said, Jane, and I would like to emphasize a few things from that. First, I'd like to thank Jenny for doing such a great job in representing the work that we've done, and to really exercise our ability to try to frame and better frame our path going forward with with the emphasis on the work we've done with the ordinance and the work to be done and continue to be done on the ordinance. So I think what I want to say about the ordinance work that we've done, the ordinance is a product of how we define ourselves and what our role is, and what we need to do and what our purpose is. And I think that's where the work can continue to be done with the work group. And I thought about this from the meeting last week, and have been thinking about everything, and thinking and reminding myself that we are volunteers, and we were selected to be on this committee to represent the community, as well as listen to the community and those communities that we represent. So I feel adamant about moving forward to continue the work to shape the ordinance in a way that truly represents what the expectations are from those who we've heard from, those we will continue to hear from, and then working in transition with the new police chief, and certainly with the LPOA. I think that's a critical piece. I think that I'm looking forward to talk about what our role is, what expectations are, and move forward that way. And then the product of the ordinance defines how we continue to shape it. And so I think continuing that work, and I think that's what I heard too, Jane, was continue the work on the ordinance. Let's also look at working in the work group as well. So I'm looking forward to doing that.
Board Member Littleton.
This board member, Stephanie Littleton. I don't know if you called who you said, but if it's okay if I go ahead, I just kind of want to second what so far everyone really has said. What I heard, and having watched, number one, Jenny, you did a fantastic job. Thank you so much. Tell you, you're my number one TV personality. But anyway, in seriousness, did a fantastic job representing us. And I heard loud and clear, and I like what I heard, what the city commission and some of the responses, and we're in a totality of where we need to go. And that really is where our next step was, and that is to get a working group and have all the right stakeholders come to the table. We've done so much work, as we know, to get this ordinance to what we, with all the engagement feedback we've received, all the work that we've done to get all of that pulled together to try to do what we feel is right for this community with what we have to work with so far. So now the important part starts, and that is getting all the right people to the table and next steps. And that is, and I hear this loud and clear, I think it's an important piece that we do this collaboratively. We have to all work together, come in with this ordinance with all the work. It's absolutely an important resource that's over here kind of on the side table. And we kind of bring everybody in together and start talking what is really, when they talk about, and I heard Brandon speak to this as far as the problem definition, really I see it as, what does this city need from us? What do we look like in makeup, right? What's our model? What's the right model? That we're going to serve the right purposes. So all that needs to probably be worked through once we determine the membership. So definitely next steps are getting a membership, walking through that, and then start working on the whole scope of our work and kind of laying that out, but absolutely moving forward, because it's been a lot of time. We've put so much into this. Now it's time to get all the right people involved.
This is Chair Robinson. Board Member Gibson, did I also see your hand raised?
I was just going to clarify. Tanya said she thought that I had recommended that we work on the ordinance and work on the ordinance in the working group. And I just wanted to be clear that my understanding of what I saw as kind of confusing communication from the City Commission, again, despite Jenny's clear question, was that they want the ordinance, the working group, to inform the ordinance. And besides that, this board has already approved the working draft. There isn't anything more for us to do until we have input from different constituencies of the community, including probably members of the working group. So I wasn't suggesting that we would work more on the draft independently of the working group, since we've done what we think we should do and should have done already. I was just clarifying, that's all.
Okay, thanks.
This is Chair Robinson. I might jump in right now to read Sanjay's comments on this agenda item. So he shared with us kind of 6 points. So first of all, we act on the direction of the commission. We're primarily an advisory board. The commission would like us to halt the process of revising the ordinance. Since our formation, the CPRB has not heard or seen any formal complaints. We've heard from several residents about their interactions with the LPD, but no formal complaints. He's wondering, is the current process adequate? He thinks we're a single incident away from a city awakening. There's no hard data about how well the LPD is performing its social functions. The county has engaged a consultant to consider the police stop interactions and develop some baseline data. And so about the working group composition, Sanjay's personal preference would be to open it up to anybody from the community rather than the CPRB taking up 7 spots. So we have broader community participation, and therefore the CPRB could focus on its task of improving police and community relations. So operating under the current ordinance. So those are Sanjay's comments that he wanted to communicate with us today. Board Member Gibson.
Board Member Jane Gibson. Jenny, I don't know if you intended us to carry on the way we are, thinking about our next steps. You made your statement, and is it okay if we just carry on with what we're doing now? I hope you don't mind that we're doing that. Well, shoot, now I forgot what I was going to say. All that preamble, and it's all gone. Well, I know, it had to do with Sanjay's suggestion that we not take up 7 spots. And there's something important there about, if I assumed, and maybe I'm wrong about that we would have some role to play in determining who should be on the working group. And Sanjay's suggesting that we open it up to anybody in the community. I don't oppose that at all. I don't oppose inviting anybody that wants to participate. But here's the problem as I see it. If we have 7 spots instead of 3, say, then we now have a public meeting. And Commissioner Sellers made the valid point that we need to have communications with community members in which those people can actually talk frankly and openly with us. We in this board had agreed that focus groups would be a great way to go with that. We would have, pairs or 3 of us to meet with different groups of people, different stakeholders, if you want to call them that, community members, I like a little better, to find out, what their vision of a CPRB is and whatever other questions we thought would be appropriate to ask, but to help us get a really good feedback on the ordinance without the public eye, because we have acknowledged that when the cameras are on, that many people don't want to speak. And some of those are people we really, really need to hear from, but they're reluctant to speak in front of the camera and in front of other people that might, I don't know, have some influence on their employment, their lives in other ways and so forth. So, so 7 spots means a public meeting. And I could certainly live with that if, in addition to the public meetings we have with the working group, we as a board also thought to create pairs or trios of our own membership to speak in smaller groups with perhaps members of the working group, but in addition to that, other people from Jenny's very impressive spreadsheet list that we think really need to have some say about the ordinance. So I would say if we took up 7 spots, that we would absolutely need to create a parallel process in which we were speaking in much smaller group context, so that we got valid responses. We got meaningful responses from people who were not intimidated by the camera or by those that they think might have influence on their lives, that they were listening to their answers to things they wanted to say to us. So the alternative would be, and maybe Brandon can clarify this, if we had only 3 of us, then we don't need it doesn't, at least for our purposes, wouldn't need to be a public meeting, but it might be that there are some, I don't know what the structure would be that would require COMA to play a role there. But if we still had COMA in play with the working group, which is maybe not an official city board, then we would still have to have that parallel process. But if not, then we could work, 3 people could work with the working group and maybe get the same result. So I guess my main point is to focus on Sanjay's notion of the 7 spots and to suggest that a public meeting is not going to get us where we need to go, first of all, and that our original plan to do small focus groups is still basically the right idea. I mean, it could be reformulated in some ways, but having smaller groups to talk to us is really what we need if we actually want meaningful community feedback on the work that we've been doing.
Board Member Taylor.
Board Member Marie Taylor. So my thoughts echo a lot of what Board Member Sanjay Mishra said in his comments. And I see this as the board playing a part of what the working group is doing, but we're not driving that process anymore. And I think that actually makes more sense, because then city staff can assist in having more meetings than we could possibly have within, the timeframes we have. We're kind of limited to this 1 monthly meeting, but sometimes 2 monthly meetings. But I think that it makes more sense for us to be participants in that process and then offer recommendations for how that group should be structured, as we're doing now, and then have staff organize that and we participate in that process.
Board Member Gibson.
Board Member Jane Gibson. I don't have any objection at all to our being participants in that process. I guess my concern about that is that it's still, that makes, and this is probably appropriate, that the agenda or the mission of that working group is something of a black box, because the working group hasn't yet had a conversation about what it is we'd like to accomplish. Or they would like to accomplish. I'm not assuming I'm in that working group, but The problem with that is it leaves open the possibility that we are still a non-functioning community police review board. And I understood, we have a new city commission. There's only one member of the city commission that was there when the ordinance was passed in 2018. So there's only one person who knows that history and who knows what the community had to say about why it needed a CPRB. But a bunch of us were there and know why the community wants a CPRB. And our work since that time has been to try to produce exactly that thing. So I'm not comfortable with being only a participant in the working group without moving, as Jenny put it in her statements to the commission, to actually get a working ordinance so that we can be a functioning board. I think that's really an important thing for us to do. And I'm in no way suggesting any sort of subversion of what the city commission asked us to do. I wish they had been clearer about what they want. The only thing I came away with that was really clear was that they want us to, to form a working group and be a part of that and have the working group inform the ordinance. So, I mean, that's all clear, but I don't want to just sit back and be a participant without anything happening to make this a functioning board. And Marie, I absolutely appreciate the fact that we are volunteers here with whole lives and other responsibilities and obligations. And, the notion that we would, I don't know, increase the amount of time that we commit to these meetings in addition to working group meetings. And then there was discussion that we would get some training on community participation, which I think is probably an unfunded mandate, but interesting idea. But it still isn't. It still is. It's a slew of ideas and commitments that doesn't respect the fact that we're volunteers with whole lives. We need that. So anyway, that's what I have to say.
This is Chair Robinson. Now seems like an appropriate time. So to highlight, Brandon and generally Sanjay and I have a pre-meeting meeting to kind of go over agenda items. And Brandon and I discussed kind of some goals for this meeting in relation to the next steps. So very specifically, tonight, if we can, Brandon thinks it would be helpful if we chose 3 members of the CPRB to work with city leadership and the chief of police to scope out a purpose statement for the work group, create the high-level preliminary scope of work, and then create recommendations about membership for the work group. And then to bring that information back to the next CPRB meeting to refine and then take to the city commission. So those are kind of some concrete next steps specifically related to the working group. Any thoughts on that? Board Member Salvini.
Yes, Board Member Salvini, thank you, Jenny. Could you repeat those again? I'm sorry, there were 3 of them, right?
This is Chair Robinson. So the goals for the smaller group, right? So we want to choose 3 members of the CPRB to work with city leadership, chief of police, to scope out a purpose statement for the working group, do some high-level preliminary, definitions of the scope of work, and then also make recommendations about membership for the work group. And that's all to be done before the next CPRB meeting, so we can bring it back at our next meeting. Board Member Gibson.
Board Member Jane Gibson. That sounds reasonable to me. I'd like to be one of the 3 if you're looking for volunteers.
Chair Robinson. Is there any other discussion about that, or would y'all like to start just raising hands to volunteer for this group? Brandon?
Madam Chair, I might offer just a couple more thoughts or observations too. And I think you kind of summarized our conversation. I know it was very brief, and I apologize for that because we've had all sorts of COVID issues going on, as I know everybody has lately. and I think the discussion of the board this evening is very informative and very helpful to hear the concerns and also kind of some of the optimism about what could what could come out of this working group process. I will share that I feel very optimistic about the future. I definitely acknowledge the feelings and the need for the board members to process and the community to process where we're at right now after a year and a half plus of work. But I do feel very optimistic about the opportunity that we have. And I just want to express on behalf of staff, and I have spoken with members from the police command staff, as well as members from the LPOA leadership about this recently since the commission meeting, but also prior over the last several months about, if we can work collaboratively, what would that look like? And I can share, I'm happy to share that everybody that I've spoken with wants to be invitational and wants to work with the community and with the police review board members, and is interested in looking at many of the recommendations, many of the findings and recommendations, in addition to just that one that's included in the Citygate report. In my review, kind of just glancing back through the Citygate report the other day, I note starting at recommendation number 2, I think it is even, I think that there's, there's findings and recommendations early on in that report about what the police department needs to do, what our law enforcement employees need to do to build trusting relationships in the community. And I think that this process, this working group provides a forum for that. And so, my mind goes here. I think we can be very creative, and I've even thrown out the term unorthodox. We could be experimental in the sorts of conversations we have. I do think it is critical for us to get to the point where we can have difficult, critical conversations, crucial conversations with members of our police department and members of the community. And at some point, I think that's a great goal to work towards, to get to where we can have those crucial conversations, and engage in deep listening, and listening to learn from each other, and then taking that and turning it into action in the form of policy recommendations, training recommendations, procedural recommendations, et cetera. And so I feel very excited about this opportunity. I do acknowledge it's a challenging juncture to be at, but I just want to express that we really do look forward to a collaborative process and working with the board. And I also, if I may, take just a couple more minutes, Madam Chair, and feel free to cut me off if you'd like. But I would like to just talk a little bit about public participation and some of the methodology, kind of the framework, and the values that we talk about internal to city staff, including some of our members of the police department who have undergone this IAP2, which is a public participation training as well. So if it's okay, I will share my screen briefly and walk you through a little bit of what we're talking about. Okay, are you seeing yes, you're seeing the web browser. Okay, and this is actually our strategic plan framework, which I believe you're all fairly familiar with. But I do think it provides very important context for this process and this effort to come. And you look at our mission, like we are in the business of creating a community. That's an activity. And we have the privilege of being able to engage in that activity of community building and creation, where all enjoy life and feel at home. And so that's where we start. And I do think that this effort falls squarely within our safe and secure outcome. And the outcomes are measured by numerous progress indicators. And I won't go into all of that, but I think it'll be good for the working group to maybe review those. But this is our outcome statement for safe and secure. Lawrence is a community where all people feel safe and secure, have access to trusted public and community-based safety resources. And so I think that provides kind of a framework for what we're trying to accomplish. And then we have our commitments of community engagement. I won't read each of the statements. Equity and inclusion. I think even efficient, effective processes has a role in this coming effort, as well as engaged and empowered teams. This is our city teams, our teams with our contractors, teams with our collaborators, partner agencies, et cetera. And so I think our strategic plan provides a great foundational framework for how to approach this work together. And what you're seeing now is, and this is probably proprietary information that I'm sharing, so hopefully we don't get edited on YouTube, but these are the core values for the practices of public participation as stated by the International Association of Public Participation. I did have the privilege of going through a 2-week training course. It was an intensive training course with people from across North America, actually. We had people both from public and private sector participating in this course. And there have been a couple dozen, several dozen other city employees who have gone through the same training curriculum as well. And so these are the values for public participation that we're committed to, and I think really help us provide a framework for us to create value, public value through this process. And I'm happy to share this link with the board members after the meeting, because I'm sure it's probably hard to read all of this, especially on the fly and on Zoom. But it really does speak to involving the participants in designing the process, identifying the questions or the problem statements and identifying the solutions, but also being a participant in the design of the process in which they will participate. And so that's really what I want to communicate, is that we're very open to working with the board and envisioning this process to come. And then the final thing I wanted to share briefly is this is the public participation spectrum as designed and as stated by IAP2. And I have had some communication. There was some written correspondence in which I referred to this last year, and that has been shared with the board and with others as well. And really where I see this process being is at the collaborative stage and potentially elements of the empowerment stage as well. And I don't know if you can see it, but I'll just read the brief summary. The public participation goal for a collaborative process is to partner with the public in each aspect of the decision, including the development of alternatives and the identification of preferred solutions. And then the promise to the public in a collaborative process is that we will look to you for advice and formulating solutions and incorporate your advice and recommendations into the decisions to the maximum extent possible. And so this is, these are kind of the values that I think would characterize this process. And I don't come tonight with a designed process. I just come with, I guess, an invitation or a request to work with the board members. If you're okay with that idea of working with 3 board members between city leadership and the board, and developing a preliminary proposal for the board to respond to at the next meeting.
This is Chair Robinson. Thank you for sharing that, Brandon. I think that it's an exciting process to think about engaging with. So does that sound like concrete enough next steps for between now and our next meeting? Maybe nod or shake your head. Yeah, okay. Any other discussion about those next steps?
This board member, Stephanie Littleton, I think the next steps make sense, and it helps to really get us off the ground and really move forward. And I think that's what we all want and need to do. So I think this is a good plan. And I would like to be a part of it as well, you know, if that's possible, but depends on who all wants to be a party to it, since we're looking at just 3. So
This is Chair Robinson. So it sounds like board members Gibson and Littleton have expressed interest in being involved in that process. Board members Salvini and Taylor, any interest in being involved in this initial kind of development of the work group? I don't interpret this as a commitment to the work group itself, just to kind of determining these next steps.
So I want to, I'm good on the very clear next moves. Not a problem. Very good. I'm still trying to figure out how the public participation piece fits into this. Is that I'm not really, I'm sorry, I'm not clear on that. So I need someone to help me understand that. I mean, I'm not opposing or doing anything like that, but I'm trying to figure out where that fits. Is that the guidance for part of the process, or are we going to pause and learn that process and figure out how to dovetail it into this, where we're going with as we're working in the work group? And I say we in that representatives, those 3 representatives will take to the table in the work group.
This is Chair Robinson. Board member Littleton, you had your hand raised.
This board member, Stephen Littleton. So I was thinking Tanya was asking one thing and it's another, and I think you're really asking about the IA2P and how, okay. So I think, and I would appreciate, yeah, if Brandon could send the link out. That way we can all get, you know, familiar with it, so we can at least read through it. And it helped. I really appreciate, Brandon, that you went through that kind of the quick, at least kind of the run through. But if we get some exposure to that, we understand, you know, what all those principles, you know, speak to. And then I think where we're going from there, Tanya, is in the big picture is, and I may be speaking out of place here with the community, but getting however many we decide onto the working group for the community as well. And then I think the discussion will be as far as having with the facilitator doing some more public engagement stuff in addition in the mix of that working group.
This is Chair Robinson. Does that clarify it for you, board member Salvini? Okay. All right. So, and just to clarify, these 3 board members that we're identifying now are just for that kind of interim work to develop kind of just high level, those 3 things we identified earlier to bring back to our next meeting. And then we can kind of determine what board members will participate in the work group going forward, just to clarify. Okay, so board members Salvini and Taylor, would either of you be interested in kind of working with that immediate over the next month group to develop some scope and membership for the working group? And if not, that's totally fine.
I'd be interested. Unless Marie, are you interested? This is board member Salvini, I'm sorry. Marie, would you be interested?
Board member Marie Taylor, no, that's fine.
Okay.
Please.
Okay.
So this is Chair Robinson. So it sounds like board members Gibson, Salvini, and Littleton will work together with city staff and incoming chief of police to develop a purpose statement, do some general scope of work definitions, and make recommendations for membership for the work group. And Brandon, do you envision all of this happening over the next month? It seems like a little bit of a short timeline, especially considering the chief is just joining us next week. What are your thoughts on that?
Assistant City Manager Brandon McGuire. I think we should plan on having something for the board to respond to at the next meeting. And so maybe it's not the final work product, but at least giving a status update on where we're at and kind of what, I guess how we're envisioning the process or that purpose statement. And so I would, optimistically, I think we could probably draft something for the board's response within a few hours of meeting together. We may get into that meeting and decide there's a whole lot more to talk about first. But I do think we can have something, it may be preliminary, but something for the board to respond to by the next meeting.
This is Chair Robinson. All right, that sounds good. And so city staff will reach out to board members Gibson, Salvini, and Littleton to get that scheduled.
Assistant City Manager Brandon McGuire. Yes, I will. I'm supposed to be out of the office next week, if all goes according to plan, but that obviously could change on a moment's notice. So I will reach out tomorrow to try to find time on everybody's calendars, at least with the board members, so we can lock some of those times in tentatively for the following week. And that'll also give Chief Lockhart, because next week is a short week, with Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. And so that'll give Chief Lockhart a few days to find out where his office is at and give him a little bit of time to get oriented to the organization before engaging in this work at the following week.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you. This is Chair Robinson. Board Member Gibson.
Board Member Jane Gibson. I'd like to suggest that the other members who on the CPRB who are not among the three of us would also like to send, well, I'm going to suggest that you'd like to do it. I'm going to suggest that you do it, that you send lists of people that you think should, or groups, representatives from different organizations that you think need to be on the working group. The three of us can probably come up with some, but I think that this list should be more inclusive than just what the three of us could come up with. And so Jenny and Marie and Michael will no doubt have some people to add, in Sanjay, that we might not have thought of. So since you can't send it to any of us because of the COMA rules, you could maybe send any of your recommendations to Brandon. Would that work out?
Yes, please do.
Board Member Taylor.
And Board Member Marie Taylor. And if Jenny, you could send the list that we came up with when we were doing the surveying out also to Brandon, that'll cover a good number of names as well.
This is Chair Robinson. Yeah, absolutely. And I also want to say that I might ask, like for myself and board members Taylor and Santos and also Sanjay, if we have suggestions as far as like purpose statement, scope of work, as well as membership, we might just go ahead and send that to Brandon as well. And I'll let Sanjay know that. Oh, and Board Member Santos, I can send an email to both of them, right? Yeah. Okay. All right, any other discussion? Okay, I don't think we need to vote. I think, is that correct? We don't need to make a motion or vote on what we've discussed. Is that correct?
Assistant City Manager Brandon McGuire, I actually would advise a motion. I think just so we're clear about the expectation when we look back. And I think you summarized it very nicely, Madam Chair, which would be, and I can read it and then somebody can offer to make that motion or edit that. But the motion would be to name board members Gibson, Littleton, and Salvini to work with city staff, incoming police chief Lockhart, to develop a draft purpose statement and draft membership list for the working group, and to report back to the police review board for feedback at the February meeting.
This is Chair Robinson. Did we also want to add scope of work to that to-do list?
Purpose statement, scope of work, and roster.
Mm-hmm. All right. Since I have it all written down, Board Member Gibson.
Sorry, Jenny, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I have it written down too. I was just going to say so moved. If we can get a second, we can vote.
Board Member Salvini.
This is Board Member Salvini, I second.
All right. This is Chair Robinson. Brandon, I do want to check in and make sure there are no one's here for public comment before we.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, we can go ahead and move to a vote. All those in favor, yay. All those opposed, nay. Board Member Gibson.
Yay.
Board Member Salvini.
Yay.
Board Member Taylor.
Board Member Marie Taylor, yay.
Board Member Littleton.
Board Member Littleton, yay.
And Chair Robinson, yay. So with 5 votes, the motion passes. I look forward to hearing how that group goes, and we'll get that information shared with Brandon as soon as possible. Board Member Gibson. You're muted.
Jane, you're muted.
I'm sorry. I know we don't have a date for that meeting, Brandon, but could we ask you to share in advance of that meeting any materials, lists, scope, purpose that the members of the CPRB send to you? Would you share that with us in advance of that meeting so we have a chance to look at it?
Assistant City Manager Brandon McGuire. Yes, I'd be happy to do that. I will just for your awareness, I will double check with our legal counsel just to make sure that we do that above board. But I don't have any concerns at this point. So.
All right, this is Chair Robinson. So the last item on our agenda was added by Board Member Gibson. And in discussion in our pre-meeting meeting about agenda items, Brandon brought up that use of force will likely be included as a major piece in the scope of work of the work group. So I will leave it up to Board Member Gibson as to whether we would like to discuss this tonight.
Board Member Jane Gibson, well, I don't know that we want to discuss it tonight. I guess I could just say why I think it's important that it's in the working group agenda someplace. And we've been contacted by a community member who provided us with a lot of information, including videotape and his own views about the effectiveness of training and the understanding of the principles that surround use of force on the part of certain LPD officers. We haven't studied that, and I mean, I've looked at the videos, I imagine you all have too, and read the materials that were sent to us, but the fact that we were approached by a community member says to me that we need to respond to that we can't just ignore that. It's important, and so I'm hopeful that the working group will help us learn more about the use of force training and use of force practices and the efficacy of that training to impart to law enforcement officers what the boundaries are around use of force. I think that will be very helpful to us when we consider policies and training as a part of what does exist as our authority in the existing ordinance 9324.
This is Chair Robinson. Board Member Gibson, thank you so much for adding that to the agenda and bringing that to the discussion tonight. Is there any other discussion about this agenda item? All right. Anything else that we need to discuss tonight before we adjourn? Board Member Taylor?
Board Member Marie Taylor, and just in conjunction with this item and thinking about what the working group is supposed to be doing for the scope of work and mission, it's from my reading of what happened at the City Commission meeting was that this working group, even though that recommendation was very specific about the board, the way that they were thinking about this working group was that it was looking at more of a larger view on what issues were related to the ordinance. So is that everyone's understanding too? Is that it's not just going to be about the ordinance itself, or it's more of a like systems look at police and community relations, right? Is that okay? Jane has her hand up.
Board Member Gibson. Oh, you're on mute.
Can you read my lips when I curse?
Yeah.
I try not to do that. Board Member Jane Gibson. I certainly agree that the ordinance is not the only focus of the working group, that it should have a broader focus, that we want to think more about ways that we can build a healthy relationship between the law enforcement and the community. That was my takeaway. Maybe I don't know if that's what you meant. Maybe that's what you meant, Marie, I don't know. But I think that the ordinance has to be a part of that, because without a functioning CPRB, we don't have much to do. I mean, we can talk about those issues, but then, we're just talking. We're just talk. And that doesn't really help, especially because the working group will be a discrete group of people. And unless there is some way that we can put into action the ideas and principles that we discuss, then it will just be talk. So I think the ordinance has to be a part of that so that the board is functional and can actually help to implement whatever actions are required to improve community to law enforcement relationships.
Board Member Littleton.
Yeah, this is Board Member Stephanie Littleton. Yeah, I see it as much more than there are things that we don't know what we don't know, right? Besides what, I mean, it seems like kind of a silly statement, but that's true. We don't know what maybe the community is going to bring to the table that we're not aware of. We've not been given feedback for that's affecting that relationship. So yeah, this is a big picture kind of a situation where we've got an ordinance, obviously that's one piece of the pie, and then there's so much more that we just don't know that we're going to learn.
This is Chair Robinson. All right, it sounds like we're all on the same page. Anything else for tonight? Board Member Gibson.
Board Member Jane Gibson. I'm not muted, right? Okay. In case I think I failed to say it at the beginning, and it was certainly at the top of my list of things to say, I wanted to add my voice to the other board members who honor Jenny for having done such a beautiful job of representing us and speaking to the City Commission, asking pertinent questions, responding appropriately, respectfully. I don't think we could have asked for better representation, Jenny. Thank you so much for what you did for us.
As Chair Robinson, thank you. It's an honor to serve this board, so thank you. All right, our next meeting is scheduled for February 10th. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Jane, you're usually first.
I was going to say, why break with tradition? Jane Gibson, board member, I move we adjourn.
All right, do we have a second?
All right.
Was that all right? Was that a second?
Yeah, that's the second
motion.
motion.
We're so informal tonight.
I know, and I'm so impressed that you're having this done by 8:30, and it's 8:12.
Yeah.
I know. I'm very impressed with us. This meeting could have gone a lot of different ways, but I think we did a great job coming together and remaining hopeful. So I'm excited about the work that we're going to do together. All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? No.
This is board member Littleton. I just want to make a comment. Brandon, thank you for coming to the table with kind of the next steps thought for putting, a few of us together. That's really helping us to kind of move this along. And I think everybody really put some really good thought into it on this board. And I really appreciate, everything everybody's done and your thoughts coming to this point. I think this is really a critical point in where we've come from to where we're going. So thank you all so much for all that you put into this. And let's go forward.
Agreed. All right. So all those in favor of adjourning, should we go with Marie and say yeah? Or yay? And opposed, nay. Board member Littleton.
Yay.
Board member Gibson.
Yeah.
Board member Salvini.
Board member Salvini, yay.
And board member Taylor.
Board member Murray Taylor, yes.
Chair Robinson, yay. The yeas have it. We adjourn and look forward to seeing you all again on February 10th.
All right. You all take care.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.